Should we be well now?
I think we should.
Hit it. Welcome, everybody, to the Be Well Now podcast. I'm Nick. Here's my Movember mustache.
It's actually looking really nice, too. Yeah, it's coming in.
Nice is one word for it.
Mm-hmm.
I hear the ladies like the mustaches, Dr. Ron Dummar.
It's a trend now. It's happening. It's in.
It's a trend. Hey,
facial hair and mustaches as being one component of facial hair. But it's all in. A goatee, a beard.
Have you ever had a beard before?
No. Nope.
I like being clean shaven. I'm grateful for the fact that I can get a little facial hair going on. And gratitude's an important thing, and I think that's what we're here to talk about today. We don't even know who you are yet. I'm Nick, the curious patient here of Dr. Ron Dummar in Heber City, Utah, but you're the man with the knowledge.
Hello, everyone. Yeah, I'm Dr. Ron Dummar. I'm here to give some knowledge, it sounds like, today.
We bounce back and forth about certain medical issues and spirituality, but we just want to focus on gratitude. And I asked you what topic. You said gratitude. Why is gratitude so important? Well,
gratitude is the basis of, I think, mental health. I think having that, mastering gratitude, is the basis of having good mental health. And so I think that's pretty significant. And I know that's a pretty significant statement to just throw out there right at the beginning of the podcast as well. But why would I say that? When you look at gratitude, like understanding what this is almost as a psychological concept to begin with. It's like you have some sort of emotion or recognition of some benefactor or some way that you benefited from something that someone, generously contributed to you or your family or your circle, right? And there's a level of gratitude or appreciation that goes to that. And what is the significance of that contribution? What is the significance of receiving something? Well, I think anciently, when you think about it, things that we received from a very Paleolithic man type of framework, it was everything. Like it meant literally living, right? If I'm receiving a fruit, or if I'm receiving appropriate food, or if I receive a deer that runs across my path, right? Those type of things. That's something to be grateful for. And imagine the emotions that are stirred up on a hunt when something steps across your path. Are you grateful for that? Are you thankful for that? And who is it? What is it that we're thankful to? It's almost like a recognition of something more than ourselves.
Is that important for mental health? To feel like it's not just you and then you're going to die and that's it?
Absolutely. Have a tribe. Thanks for plugging that in there. But yeah, it's a significant factor to make sure that we have a tribe, we have a group, we have a collective that we can go to, that we can rely on, and that we can depend on as well. And those are all things to be incredibly thankful for.
We've talked about morning gratefulness and meditation. One thing you'd mentioned is to be grateful for the air, which is given freely. Mm-hmm. It's one thing to talk about things in sort of an ethereal, happy way. And when things are going really good, I'm really spiritually, in touch. But when things go bad, like I got COVID recently, man, I don't think about any of that stuff. I'm watching Netflix on my phone. I'm negative self-talk here and there. I'm kind of grateful that my body is alive and fighting it. But how do we get to those places of gratitude when life seems to be throwing a few punches?
Well, sometimes it's a Jedi mind trick, right?
Okay.
So a little bit of knowledge. I say that knowledge is power. A lot of people have said that. That's something we've heard time and time again. Sometimes knowing what it is that is happening in your body that's making you feel the way you're feeling can change your outlook, right? So what I mean by that is I will tell my patients that it's important to understand that when you feel sick, it's actually your body working. It's a sign that your body's working. If you were not to feel sick, we might actually have more of an issue, right? So if there's no alarm mechanism, if you're driving in your car and you don't have any lights ever go on, check engine oil, oil light, nothing ever goes on in your car, would that be considered a problem? We would say that's a problem. Well, what if all those lights and those indicators in your vehicle are actually metaphors or synonymous to the feelings or the symptoms we experience in our bodies, right? Well, those feelings are saying, hey, something's happening here. Well, it's the immune system working, right? And yeah, it is a sign saying, hey, maybe we need to work or turn a little more inward and work on ourselves a little bit more. But there's a level of gratitude we should be expressing for that, or at least having. Man, I'm so grateful that my body is signaling to me, letting me know that I can take care of myself and I can actually feel better. I can feel better because it's showing me how it feels to feel poorly.
What about those who are perpetually sick or have chronic immune disease? How do they feel grateful? Just to challenge you a little bit there.
Yeah, well,
because it never goes away for them.
Yeah, well, they have flare-ups. Yeah, they have flare-ups when you have an autoimmune-related disorder or condition. And it is, I will tell you that some of these people that have these conditions have learned or they develop, as among some of our patients, some of the most grateful attitudes that there are among patients. It's easy when life is a stroll for us to get into maybe a rut, like you're saying, of getting on Netflix and maybe some negative self-talk and, oh, pity me, right? But when you're faced against a challenge or put up against a challenge and you have to overcome, or you're choosing, I should say, to overcome that challenge, your outlook can significantly change, and your level of meaning or connection to life and to what it means to embody this personage that you have, it significantly changes. It becomes so much more meaningful.
Oh, I just heard that, embody, in terms of the Be Well Now podcast, being well, being in the present, living now, right? We're so often in our mind. I've heard Ram Dass say the mind is a wonderful servant, but a horrible master. And embody.
Mm-hmm.
Get into your body.
Be in your body.
And out of your damn mind.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, be in your body.
And just to be aware of it and to be with it. Because that's what I mean by Netflix. It's not like that's the devil or anything, but it's just zoning out, letting all that dopamine come from a screen, totally being out of touch with my body, or just numbing out, really.
It's one distraction, right? And if you think about a variety, there are other distractions. We live in a bit of a billboard society, and that's a lot of what social media is. You can scroll through social media. It's billboard after billboard after billboard after billboard. And what you have to recognize is that every one of those billboards, we're taking a mental note and making a mental memory or image in our mind. And so when I want to recover from an illness, or when I want to have an optimistic outlook, or have feeling or sensation of gratitude, and if those images that I'm choosing to scroll through or to spend more of my time in, or even those books that I choose to peruse more of my time in, those articles that I choose to put more of my time in, those things are going to influence how I actually recover. So we're getting a lot more into the ethereal or the emotional aspect, right, of this. Gratitude is actually considered maybe an emotional component. They've looked at it as an emotion. They're not really sure. Psychologists have worked on this for a long time, and they're not really sure where to place gratitude, right? Is it a virtue? It's now being considered a virtue. You can read some ancient scholars' works and discussions on what gratitude was. But oftentimes what they'll do is they'll say they know what it is to have someone who receives a gift and is ungrateful. We all know what that is. And we know how that feels. And it's interesting because, okay, the person who is ungrateful, it's one of the worst imaginable things that these ancient scholars could imagine to be ungrateful. And if we permeate in our lives an ungrateful attitude about things that occur or things that are happening, it's almost like perpetuating, like you're saying, this negative self-talk. It's like, why would we want to have an attitude of ungratefulness? What we really want to perpetuate is this attitude of gratitude, right? Or being grateful and being thankful for things.
How do I practice gratitude in my daily life?
So recognizing, I would say, opening your eyes, and frequently we will suggest that people take a hike. They get into the mountains. They take a stroll. They hang out with loved ones or people who care and are concerned for them, right? If a patient today said to me, "Oh, I didn't come last week. I missed our appointment." And this patient, she does not miss her appointments, and she relies on them to a significant degree for mental health. And she said, "I didn't come last week because, I had a meeting. It was a quilting meeting with some of my friends." And she said, "And that is so good for my health." And I said, "Absolutely, right? It's choosing and selecting those people that we want to be around that are going to be uplifting, right? And it's also placing ourselves in a situation or in a context that's going to contribute to our overall health. So one thing that I like to do is I like to work on a variety of levels. So let's do something physically, let's do something emotionally, right? And let's do something spiritually, you could say. So if we look at each of those components, what's something physically that I could do to practice gratitude? Well, I could physically or even outwardly, when somebody does something for me, say thank you and actually express gratitude, right? Or maybe there's someone that gives me a gift that's beyond just opening a door for me, but they're actually giving a gift. Or typically gratitude is this brings up in my mind, because we have to define this. Again, we talked about the giver and the receiver. And I don't want to get off of those three things, the physical, the spiritual, and the emotional, so let me make sure I come back to that. But the giver, oftentimes in a relationship, it's a gratefulness and it's also a giver. So there has to be something given, and then there's something's received. Well, if we have a recognition that we're constantly receiving direction and things that are going to lead our life in a better way, if we can develop a mindset that something is always going to work out for us. Now, somebody is going to not like the name I say right here, but I'm using his name for a very specific reason, because while he is and can be considered very obnoxious and absurd, he's also almost bullheadedly optimistic and positive at the same time. And this is Donald Trump. Every time anyone attacks him, or anytime what it looks like might be a loss, or it might be like somebody's ripped him down or torn him down, or he has a perspective that he delivers on it that is, "Oh, this is a great win. This is a great," and you think of politics in general, they seem to be able to spin, we call it spin, right? They seem to be able to spin it in their way perpetually. But I've noticed with Donald Trump, in the things that I've heard from him, even after he left the presidency, he's constantly pushing things out in a very, very positive way towards him, right? Regardless of how things turn out for him, as it's interpreted, when I read articles and different things, and it sounds like, oh, he's come, unlucky for him. But then you see his perspective on it. It's like, oh, he thinks he's winning the game still, right? He's winning the game. And in the game of life, if we can perpetually enable ourselves or motivate ourselves to constantly be going toward that space where we are in peace and we're in a space of us winning, it doesn't mean dominating. I think sometimes Donald Trump gets into that dominating space. But what we need to do is be in that space of we're maintaining this space of peace, this space of love, the space of integrity, and we're going to constantly function from this space. So if anything tears us down, what we know is that we're always going to go back to that, always, and that love wins, that gratitude wins, that peace wins, that we have this. We all huddle around, or we line up our wagons, circle our wagons around this fact that gratitude, love, peace win in the end, period, always. And so if we will line our wagons or circle our wagons around those concepts and know for certain that those things win, if we can say love wins, and if we can believe somewhere deep down that love will win in the end, then why not always go back to that space? Because that's the space of the winning team, period. So that's one thing that I like to tell people to do as well, is to place your, the place that you're going to go. Anytime that you're taken down, you need to make sure that you have a context that's going to take you right back to love. It's going to take you right back to gratitude. It's going to take you right back to peace, right? So that all of those characteristics, we're going to imbue and function from there. So if you're feeling down, if you're feeling irritated, if you're feeling angry, we have to go, okay, let's go back to the winning characteristics. And now that we embody those characteristics or those character traits, now let's make decisions from there. Okay? Now, spiritual, physical, and emotional. So the physical, thanking somebody. Spiritual is literally believing or having a knowingness that there's something more to this existence than physically exists with me right here. Right? There's something more. There's actually something more to me than is physically projected and portrayed to all of you. There's something more, and it sits up here, and we'll even have sometimes conversations. We try to limit this kind of voice in the head that a lot of people have, and we try to just allow our body to be at peace and be level so that we can, maybe bring that inside chatter down a little bit and then just allow ourselves to move from our heart, and that becomes the emotional piece, right? How do we tap into that emotion? Well, physically, we can be grateful. We can make grateful actions. Spiritually, we can acknowledge that there is something far greater to me and this existence than is physical that we interact with. And then emotionally, we can embody that space and move forward with it.
How do I embody that space?
I like that question. You're always leading me. You're always challenging me to actually give a more didactic answer, right?
I mean, I like the idea of actually expressing gratitude, and then at some level, whether
spiritually
it's in
acknowledging
that situation or just in general, spiritually acknowledging there's more to this existence. Mm-hmm. Is that connected to the act, or is that just a more perpetual practice of gratitude?
Yeah, so the act of gratitude, right? That's the question. What is the act of gratitude? Because it seems so emotional almost, right? An emotion frequently will motivate us to do something. But then also we have in society where we've kind of taught people to be grateful, or they know, okay, when somebody gives you something, say thank you. Well, okay, you can actually say thank you, but not really be grateful, right? It's like the toddler, say thank you, say thank you, say thank you. And sometimes we're still toddlers when we grow up, and we have to engage with that as well. But some of those emotions that we have stored in us, some of those patterns that we've created within ourselves, we have to really begin the process of acknowledging, is this a healthy pattern? Is this a healthy emotion? Is this something that's serving me? Or is it something that I can process and let go? So the emotion of being ungrateful, which all of us can relate to, That's an emotion that we want to be able to process and let go, right? So that we can exercise and embody gratitude. So how do we do this? Well, I'll tell you one strategy that I have, because when we're talking about dealing with emotions, it's so challenging for people to say, first of all, how do I even know if I have a trapped emotion, right? Or an emotion that's impeding my progress? And then what do I even do about it? Because now it's just part of my person, isn't it? It's just who I am. So, and then what's really the motivation to get rid of it or to process it? So why would I want to do that? Well, first of all, the way to recognize whether you have an emotion or trapped emotion that's not serving you is if something bugs you. So that's a simple question. Has anything irritated you lately? Have you been bothered by something? Is there something that perpetually seems to irritate or bother you? Is there something that occupies your mind and your thoughts analytically in a significant way that seems to really occupy your emotions as well? Well, those are trapped emotions that need to be released. The next question is, well, how do we release those? One of the things we talked about was tapping. We've talked about that before, and that's one tool that people can begin to utilize. They have to acknowledge, okay, am I having this feeling or sensation? Is it a sensation that I want? Like anger, irritability, are those fun sensations to have? They're not. They're not fun sensations to experience. And to live in the space of irritability all the time, imagine that. That's tiring.
So
it's exhausting.
If I'm irritated, how can I use tapping to help?
Okay, so if I'm feeling irritated, essentially what you're going to do, and it depends on where you are, right? Because you might feel like, I can't do this in public, right? So if you're in a space where you feel like, okay, I can't do this in public, what you're going to do is you're going to just massage between the thumb and the forefinger. Start massaging that space. You're recognizing that there's this irritability building up in you. And you're going to do that on both sides. This is an acupuncture point that sends messages and signals to the brain that can actually help balance brain signals and mood stabilization, can regulate the mood. Okay? So just massaging back and forth on either hand, just like that, can benefit you. Okay, and it can help to bring down that irritability and help you to process that emotion.
The web or right in the...
Yeah, in the web. You'll feel the muscle in there. So the acupuncture point, if you squeeze that thumb and forefinger together, they say the highest point. So right there, you're looking at the highest point there. Boom, right there. That's where you'd massage, right there.
Oh, that's kind of sensitive there. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that's kind of in there, though. That's more than the web. That's...
Oh, yeah. So it's not just out here. It's on that muscle and it's near the bone. Most of your acupuncture meridians run right along the bone.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah. So that's a point that you can do in public. Tapping, the way to do tapping is to activate the acupuncture points along the scalp, the face, and then down along the chest. Because oftentimes when we're feeling that anxiety or the irritability or stress, we start to develop this tension in the chest. It can even make it hard to breathe. We can begin to feel like someone's almost standing on our chest. I had a 16-year-old girl the other day just come in, and we were working through tapping and a variety of different techniques for her. But that's what she was describing, that it was beginning to feel like someone was standing on her chest. Even if she attempted to make a deep breath, which she's like, I can breathe, but it's like, it feels like it's a lot of work for her. And it feels like this tension is constantly there. Well, we want to tap that tension away, activate the neurology that's going to release that strain and stress from the chest and the thoracic cage. And then that anxiety and stress will go down.
So give me a way to use tapping at home if I'm feeling irritable.
Okay, so now you're not in public, you're on your own, you're in a space wherever you want to be, right? And you feel comfortable doing whatever you want to in that space. You feel comfortable, what you'll do is you'll tap. You start right up here and you tap on the top of the head, just like this. You activate these acupuncture points And you're using a force that is, it's comfortable, but you feel it. And then you'll tap right straight down the forehead right between the eyes. This is another activation point right here. And then you're going to go around one of the eyes and underneath that eye, and then right back up and to that center point again. And then under the nose and under the lips and either side of the breastbone, just like this, down all the way to that pointy bone at the end called the xiphoid, and then back up and then go down again. And then I did this eye, so I'm going to go to the opposite side of the chest. So I'm trying to make sure I activate both parts of the brain as well. And so I'm tapping all along this axillary region, which is right along the armpit, and down in a line essentially to the bottom of my rib cage and back up. And you'll feel points in there that are a little more tender than others. Those are points that you can tap in and focus a little bit more on to disperse that energy. And if you imagine like any other cable or cord or electrical conduit, if it starts to have a disruption in it or a short, that can cause a lot of problems. It can cause a lot of erratic electrical dysfunction. And our body's electrical conduits, known as nerves, are no different. And if we start to have a dysfunction of our nerves electrically, our system, well, it's going to cause a variety of mental health related disorders. But it can also cause butterflies, it can cause stomach related issues, it can cause heart related issues, palpitations.
I gotta tell you, I feel better.
You do feel better, right?
I literally feel better. I mean, I'm sitting here and I was getting a little tired, and you're saying very interesting things, but I'm very much an active listener, which can be kind of exhausting. Even though you want to be here. Like I was at a work convention in Vegas for a week where I caught COVID, by the way. And it was a lot of work, but I love being there. But you're having conversations and you're like, I'm going to show up and listen to you, which is not something that we always do. We have our phones, we're distracted all the time. But to be present and listen is kind of tiring.
Yeah, and I here's another challenge.
But I feel energized again. I'm just, it's more of like a...
You're like, oh, here it is. I'm back.
That really helped.
Yeah, I'm back.
That was great.
Yeah.
I'm back.
Yeah. So here's one thing as well to do is I love to do, and I do this with my kids as well, but I like to write out a list of kind of goal type things, but also it's things that I am aspiring to be, things that I believe I am. I believe within each of us is a God, right? Like an untainted soul that can do amazing things, and that is an amazing creature. Like it is like whatever we would describe deity as. That's what it is, right? And it's us. It's moving through us. And so I want to be able to take that piece of me and have it emanate as much to my exterior and outside and around me, so that I can influence my physiology with that power and that light, so that I can influence my relationships with that power and that light, and so that I can influence everything around me with that power and that light. And so what I like to do is speak to that. First of all, recognize who you are. That's who you are. It's not necessarily, we're not looking necessarily at this physical realm or this physical body, right? We're looking at who you really are. And we already talked about it's more than this, okay? So now what we need to do is say, let's speak to that. Now let's write out, now that we're in that space, I know who I am. I'm connected with who I am. I'm thinking about this person that happens to be like whatever I would imagine deity to be like, it happens to be like that. Almost in similitude to that. And so I'm going to write out a few sentences, maybe even 6 to 10 sentences, that describe that. But I'm going to do it with the phrase I am, and then put the descriptors after it. I am experiencing love, light, and truth. I am communicating on a level that speaks to people's hearts. I am building relationships that will last a lifetime. I am experiencing wealth, prosperity in my life, right? Things like that. And you can write those phrases out and then record them and put nice music to them and then listen to them at night as you fall asleep. So use that as a bit of a meditation, right? You're listening to your voice. This is a powerful thing. What do we usually say in our mind and about ourselves? We're our worst critic, right? We are our worst critic. What if you could hear yourself telling you how amazing you are? That's awesome. And if you can connect to that and listen to it every night when you go to bed, is that going to change your physiology? Is it going to change maybe some of the things that are going on up there? Maybe some of those self-talk thoughts, those beliefs? And when we talk about esteem, do we hold ourselves in high esteem? It's not just about self-esteem as flat with no measurement. We want to hold ourselves in high esteem. And everyone should hold themselves and those around them in high esteem. And that's one way to do it, is to listen to that. I call it scripting. Okay? Write those down, put it to music, record it, and listen to it every night as you go to bed.
Sounds a bit grandiose to say I am all of those things. Can you get me in the mindset and give me the rundown one more time?
Yes. So
let's think about this in 1 minute or less. Tell me how to do this, and what should I say, and why is it important?
Okay, so the first thing is getting into the mindset. So you have to be able to get into the mindset that you are, first of all, buy into the idea that you are more than just this physical body. If you can buy into that, are you more than this physical body? Am I yes or no? Well, if we can't buy into that yet, then we need to play with that idea a little bit more. Okay, and then you need to ask yourself, well, who's asking myself this? Who's asking me if I am more than my physical body? That sounds a little weird. Well, either you do believe in some duality of existence of yourself.
And when you say duality, do you mean that there's this body that our soul inhabits, and then there's also God or source? Like, what does duality mean?
So I'm talking about even just the duality of you, right? Like your physical makeup that I look at and see, but then also this spirit or soul energetic source that is you. It's the energy that makes up you that I wouldn't necessarily say is your nerves. Like it's not your brain. It's something more than that.
Like if you chopped off all my limbs,
you would still be you.
Be me. And then there's the belief that when I'm gone, like my soul, spirit, whatever you want to say, still exists and goes somewhere. Like it is more than this body.
Yes.
So the fact that I am intertwined with this body, it's not just a body.
Right.
Is it?
No.
I mean, I'm in it. We're in this together, but I'm also separate from it.
Exactly.
As an autonomous.
And that's the duality, right? It's the duality of our existence. It's the fact that we can talk to ourselves. That's strange.
Who's doing the talking?
Yes, exactly. Who's doing the talking? What is that? Is that you? Right?
Who is you?
I love it. You're asking these questions. So
no, but I had a conversation with someone at this work conference, and he was talking about anxiety, and I said something like, well, who's doing the worrying? And he was like, what do you mean? And I was like, I don't even know how to explain it.
Yeah.
That's when I know I'm too far down the rabbit hole. So how do you explain that to someone?
That means you're starting to think like all of us, right?
Groupthink.
Yeah.
But what does it mean? Like
Groupthink. I love it.
Who is doing the thinking? It's like.
Well, so there's two aspects of thinking. When you think about ideas that have come, impressions, somebody receives a surge of information, right? Sometimes people wake up and it's like, oh my gosh, I dreamed this thing and it came to me. Where did it come to you from? It didn't just like all of a sudden the synapses and the neurons in the brain all of a sudden fired at the appropriate rate and then bam, right? No, it's this existence, this duality of you being. And sometimes if we can get into the space where our brain is actually doing less analyzing and more realizing, then we understand that we're experiencing this world and living it here, ethereally, spiritually, emotionally. And then the physical aspect is only a small aspect of what we're really doing here. Most of what our experiences are spiritual and emotional in existence. You know, I walk into a room, or if someone walks into a room, you can feel that. Sometimes people walk into the room and it irritates the heck out of you. Or someone walks in the room and it excites you. What'd they do? Did they physically touch you? Did they motivate you? Did they wake you up? But they transmitted something to you. There was something about you in that exchange that took place that had nothing to do with physicality, right? It had nothing to do with physiology alone, but physiology was influenced by it. So first of all, that was all about just understanding that you are more than the physical makeup of you. So if we can acknowledge that idea first, that we're more than the physical makeup of us, then we can begin to say, okay, well, if I'm more than the physical makeup of me, then what is me? Where does this spirit, this soul, where does it come from? What is its existence? What is its role? What is its purpose? And is it connected? Is it interconnected in some way with all other living things? And I think in the most part, we would say yes. There is a connection. We know that we can be influenced by people's presence, by the thought. You know, I know that there are people that have exercised like prayer or, sometimes meditation, and then they've called somebody or someone on the other side of the world says, hey, I was having this experience and I felt this light and warmth and love, and they end up finding out, hey, this is when I was meditating. I was meditating for you, and I was in this space. We were in it together, and I was pouring out love, and I didn't know why, but it needed to happen. Okay, so we are connected on a very significant level. So if we can take that step and say, all right, we know that our physical and our soul or our spiritual live in duality, and we know that our spiritual or soul piece of us is actually grand enough that it connects in some way, it's intelligent. There are studies that have been done that they've said that you could be standing on the street corner, and there's something about people's neurology where their level of physiological reaction, like the cortisol and the adrenals and the adrenaline that's released, starts to go up moments before the impending doom occurs, right? So like a collision or something. And they look at it and they're like, wow, it's interesting because it's almost as if there's a soul understanding amongst the people in that area that something's occurring. And if you think about the animal world, things happen, start changing in the environment. Animals are acutely aware of it. We all have this aspect to us that is so much, has a level of intelligence that is so much higher and so much grander than what we actually are gleaning from our mental, physical capacity right now. And so now taking it from that space, we say, okay, well, that's pretty grand. And there is something more to this. There is something more to this than I realized. And so let's go from that space and say, okay, now, who could I possibly be connected with? Well, spiritually, emotionally, soul-based, I'm actually connected to everybody. And if I increase my mood, or if I improve something about myself, it can actually have a ripple effect on everyone around me. If I start making different choices in my life, it can impact everyone around me. It just does. And so let's go from that space now, understanding that, okay, I'm something more than myself, and that part of myself that is not just physical is connected to all of the things around me, and it has a higher level of intelligence that I could actually access. I can grab intelligence from basically all of these places around me that I'm connected to. And all I have to do is tap into that. But it's not my mental, physical mind. It's my soul. It's my spirit. It's that energy that is about me. And if I tap into that, then I can be even grander than I could, almost imagine. So now from that space, we know that our capacity to be something more is huge. Our capacity to, I don't think be something more is the right way to describe it, but it's to be, our capacity to be, let's just put it that way, our capacity to be well and to be well now, right? Our capacity to be there is huge. It's large. Our capacity is so large. So now from that space, take down and write a sentence and think about, okay, well, who do I think I am on a soul level? And even what do I want to, on a soul level, experience? What are the greatest, grandest things I could imagine experiencing? And then I'm going to I'm going to recognize in truth, the truth of who I am on a soul level and say, I am this. I am experiencing this. Because it's sometimes easier to say I'm experiencing something than it is to say I am exactly something. For people, if you need to get there, use those terms like I'm experiencing, or I am enjoying, I am seeing these things play out. But preface all of them with I am. And the reason I say that is because you are, again, when you listen to this at night, you are listening to your voice telling you who you truly are. And you're doing that, sure, from a goal mindset, from a hopeful mindset, from a mindset of gratitude and thankfulness for who you really are. And you're not seeing it maybe in your present physical reality right now, but that is why we set goals too. That's why you say, I want to be there. I'm not satisfied where I am right now physically, so I want to be there. And we put all these steps and lists together. Well, what if you could just recognize who you are? What if you could be grateful for who you are? And you come to a realization of, thank you. Thank you for bringing me to this space and allowing me to have this experience and to understand who I am. And I promise to live my life in a way that honors who I am. And now all of my decisions, all of the thoughts that I have, all of the actions that I take are those done with integrity and respect for who I am. So hopefully that helps.
That was about a minute.
About 10? Was it 10?
It was about 20.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. So when do I practice gratitude? Because it's easy to say, I'm going to be grateful today. It's harder when really tough things happen and you say suffering is grace and it's at one level very hard and at the other level it's perfect. Like I'm there with Ram Dass and I hear that, but it's having conversations with people who aren't familiar with this kind of language and they give you that quizzical look and you're like, man, I don't think I'm a good proselytizer. I don't think I'm someone who convince other people, me, of these things. I just know what resonates with me. So things get hard. How do we be grateful for really hard things in the moment?
Hard things need to be recognized as opportunities. If you can see things as opportunities to grow, opportunities to change, opportunities to advance, then there's a lot to be grateful for. My coach hands me a ball and says, shoot it into the basket. I tell him, I can't play. I've never played basketball before. Well, here's an opportunity. We need a spot on the team. Okay, go practice. Well, that's a lot of work. Shoot. Yeah, but you know what? Maybe you train and you practice and you keep shooting that ball and you keep throwing it up there, keep throwing it up, and then eventually you get better and better at it. And maybe you get a scholarship. Maybe you don't.
Or maybe you learn some things that have nothing to do with basketball along the way.
Yeah, and you're grateful. You're grateful for the new skill that you developed and for the life skill that you'll have to carry basketball through your entire life, to go to the gym and work out and keep yourself physically healthy and enjoy some camaraderie with people that you like and enjoy, and to do something that you love and that you're actually kind of good at. Why are you good at it? Because you developed the skill. And everything that we do in life is just like that. Why am I good at something? Well, you're usually not very good at it until you start doing it. And there's typically an uphill battle. The hardest shot you take is the first one.
What about when something tragic happens?
In the middle of that, right? So maybe you break your ankle.
Or what if you lose someone or a pet or a family member? I'm talking about real tragedy.
Real tragedy, yeah. Those are really challenging times, right? Those are difficult things. And even illnesses, right? Where we see people suffering for years sometimes. We can look at that and we can say, well, they shouldn't be suffering. Why are they suffering like this? Okay? What is the purpose of this challenge? What is the purpose of this suffering, of this loss? And what does it teach me? Does it teach me anything? Well, there are a couple of ways that I can go about this. I can swirl around in self-pity and in self-doubt and decide that there is no way that a good and loving environment would have ever done such a thing or brought such a thing to fruition. And that's a pretty dark place to live. And these are choices that I'm talking about individually. We're all going to suffer when these things happen. And someone who doesn't suffer, it's almost not natural. You're going to have some level of suffering when these things occur. You lose a pet, you lose a loved one, someone you care deeply for, or even when a loved one gets injured or sick, you have some suffering. And so what is your experience through that? What do we have to learn? Well, I think part of that we have to learn is to understand and sympathize and empathize with loss. And it hurts. And it's frustrating. And when we lose something, we also have the opportunity to reinvent something. Again, it's I'm not trying to say you should use these also as opportunities, but you have to look at it as well. Take your time. Give yourself that time to suffer. Be thankful and grateful that you have that time. Be thankful that you had that. You had a relationship that was significant enough that you care deeply for, that makes you feel just completely demoralized when it's gone. That's something to be grateful for and to look to and to understand that you created that relationship and that life in this existence, and know that now you at least have a measure of hope, a yardstick of peace that can be attained again. Now, will it ever be the same? Will it ever be the same person? No, and it doesn't have to be. But it will be the new one that you created, that you can create again. And you can create it over and over and over and over again, endlessly. And each of those that you create and each of the losses that you have incredible respect for. And you have an awe and a reverence for. And the way that you best reverence or even best honor that loss is to reinvent a new one. Not a new loss, but a reinvent a new opportunity. People often will say, okay, they'll put people's names on buildings, or they'll dedicate, certain buildings to people that have passed, right? And so that's a way of honoring someone. And what you can do is, all right, I'm going to honor this relationship. Well, where's this person written, right? Well, we know for certain they're written on your heart, and they never have to leave. They never have to leave. But your heart is so big and you've had so much growth and so much experience in love and compassion and understanding relationship that you can have more, that your heart can receive more. And for those things, we show gratitude and thanks.
Should we end it there?
That works for me.
You have a lot more to say, as always, I'm sure.
I'm okay.
You okay?
Yeah, that's good.
I feel grateful for that last bit. Kind of gave me some chills and some feels, and my heart's feeling adequately large to handle what comes next and to be grateful for it.
Absolutely. I think you're great, man. You got good things coming, just like all of our listeners.
Absolutely.
Good things coming.
Hey, and for all the listeners out there, and I'm sure there's many of them, more than one, hopefully.
I like that.
I hope they enjoyed this Movember beard, this mustache.
Yeah, I wouldn't quite call that a beard yet, buddy. You got to work on that a little harder if you're going to call it a beard.
It's going to be the best mustache ever.
Yeah.
And we hope folks continue to tune into the Be Well Now podcast to see it grow. We hope you all are growing, and we appreciate you. And
so next week.
Oh, next week.
Next week we're going to talk about tryptophan.
Ooh.
Serotonin.
Ooh, Thanksgiving is coming. Oh, my God.
I figured that'd be a good time to talk about those neurotransmitters, right?
That would be great. Thanksgiving is coming, and gratitude was today's topic. Namaste.
Happy Thanksgiving, everyone. Namaste.
Happy Thanksgiving.